Fellow Ghanaians, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us here on UPfront on the Joy News channel. It's the 13th day of July 2023. Lots have been happening, particularly in Parliament, and that's where our focus will be this evening on UPfront on the Joy News channel. So, the new standing orders of Parliament, well, by motion, Parliament has approved it. What that means is that they're just waiting to have it formally passed through a resolution, and then Parliament would now be governed by new standing orders. But of course, let me just run by you some of the provisions of the new standing orders and how those provisions, all things being equal, could enhance Ghana's democracy. And that's what we'll be talking about later on in the show. But of course, when it comes to the Appointments Committee, now, based on the new standing order of Parliament, the Appointments Committee should be chaired by a member who is not from the party in government. Now, this is instructive, and you would understand shortly, because Parliament, in determining chairpersons of committees, actually indicate, for instance, and bearing in mind that there could be times where you have, a party in government, that party may not have the majority in Parliament, and vice versa. They actually say that when it comes to the Finance Committee, it should be chaired by the party in government. In this case, it doesn't matter, for instance, whether the party in government has the majority or not. They say for the smooth running of the government, that particular committee should be chaired by the party in government. In the same way, they talk about the Appointments Committee, that should be chaired by the party not in government. Not necessarily because that party has, a lot of its, members. All they're talking about is that party should not be in government. Now, they've also talked about the fact that going forward, we should have the Appointment Committee members comprising the leadership in Parliament and leadership of the particular committee of which that minister, that has oversight over the particular ministry. Okay? So, for instance, if you're vetting a finance minister, you expect leadership of Parliament, and then you have some members and leadership of the Finance Committee. Their belief is that these persons would do a good job. The critical question is, how will these committees or these new standing orders enhance the work of Parliament? That's a conversation we're having this evening on UPfront on the Joy News channel. My name is Winston Amoah, and joining us for this conversation is a member of Parliament for Ho West. He's been, chairperson and a ranking member of the Government Assurances Committee. That's Emmanuel Bedra. We also have Dr. Rashid Draman, who is the Executive Director of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Good evening to you, Dr. Rashid Draman, and good evening to you, Emmanuel Bedra. Okay, so we'll introduce them shortly. Let's go for a short break. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us here on UPfront on the Joy News channel. And this evening we're joined by Member of Parliament for Ho West. He's been, chairperson of the Government Assurances Committee and also a ranking member of the committee, Emmanuel Bedra, joining us via Zoom, and Dr. Rashid Draman, who is the Executive Director of the African Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Gentlemen, good evening, and thank you very much for joining us. If you can unmute your microphones, I'll be very happy. Good evening, Honorable Bedra, and good evening, Dr. Rashid Draman. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good evening, Winston, and good evening to my brother, Dr. Rashid. It's been a long time.
Well, Dr. Rashid, you can hear from your brother who says it's been a long time.
Yes, I heard from him.
Great. I'd like to start off with you, Dr. Rashid Draman, because I know you've done some work on this. So the motion has been approved, adopted. We're waiting for the resolution now. But would you say this is the step in the right direction, and this is a good day for Ghana's democracy, particularly its parliament?
Indeed, it is, Winston, because these standing orders, they've been a very big candidate for revision for more than 10 years now. Parliament after parliament, we've made efforts, we've invested a lot of money. The center that I used to work with, invested a lot of money. I remember under Star Ghana, we did a lot of work, other organizations like CDD. So I must commend the leadership of the 8th Parliament, I think, for making sure that this has seen the light of day. This is, it can be better than this, because as you know, these standing orders date back, to more than 20 years, and a lot has happened. A lot has changed in our country, in the world of parliaments, and so on, including, we woke up and we didn't know how to deal with the 8th Parliament, how to define who is majority and who is minority. So I think it's a step in the right direction, and I must commend the leadership of Parliament. We can look at the details, but really, I think it's a good day. And let me also say that I've been part of the process. The committee that the Right Honorable Speaker set up, I think I made some contributions. I've seen some of that reflected in the standing orders, but I've also been disappointed that I didn't see some.
Okay, we'll get back to you shortly and look at what you had expected to see that you didn't see, and what you see currently and what you make of them, because I know you'd have to leave us. But let me get to Honorable Betra and get his views on this. Dr. Rashid Rahman makes the point that this is 20 years in coming, but of course it's a good day for Ghana's Parliament. What do you say?
Yeah, it is a good day, Winston, for Ghana's Parliament. In my debate this afternoon, I mentioned that when I came to Parliament in 2009, one of the things that we heard that time was that they were going to review the current standing orders. And so we've been expecting that the current standing orders will be reviewed. Last Parliament, we've done some work on the standing orders. We're going to pass it in the 7th Parliament. And I believe there was, after the election, some people do not agree especially to the number of people per committee, and that has stalled the passing of the standing orders in the 7th Parliament. Thankfully, today we've gone through the motion. The next thing is to pass the resolution, and then we'll have a new standing order. It is a new standing orders that will pass the test of time. Listen, as you can agree with me, and as Doctor has mentioned, we live in a dynamic world, a world that we are interconnected. We are members of the Commonwealth Association or Parliamentary Association. We are members of International Parliamentary Union. We are members of so many parliamentary associations. More importantly, we are also members of the Open Parliament Initiative, which is the Open Government OGP, or Open Government Partnership. And we are signatory to the Open Government Partnership. Within the Open Government Partnership, we have Open Parliament. And for this new standing orders, committee works, as we go into details, you will see that committee works will not be done in the secrecy that we all used to know. It will now be done in the open, where people cannot access Parliament and know whether they are members of Parliament that they send to Parliament are working or not. And so there are a lot of good things in this current standing orders. Okay,
we'll get into the details, but let me get Dr. Rashid Rahman in, because Dr. Rashid Rahman, you have talked about your disappointment on some of the things that are not in there. Let's start from the disappointment. What were some of the things that you were expecting to see that you haven't seen in the new standing orders?
Well, I think some of the things that I wanted to see. I know, first of all, let me commend again Parliament for trying to split the leadership of the various committees and giving some of that to the opposition. For instance, the appointments committee and some other committees are now going to be chaired by members that are not from the ruling party. I would have loved to see many more oversight committees. So, for instance, the sector committees, Committee on Health, Committee on Agriculture, Committee on Education, and so on, which provide oversight over the various sectors of our economy. I would have loved to see some of them given to the opposition, like what happens in a lot of Eastern and Southern African countries. But I think what we see already is a bold step, and I think the the majority leader and myself, we've had a lot of discussions about this. I mean, when we used to visit, countries in Eastern and Southern Africa, and we were wondering why, we couldn't have, that kind of arrangement in our parliament. So today, this is seeing the light of day, even if, it's not 100%. The other thing that I didn't see, which I, suggested to the committee, was, the Committee of the Future. So this is a committee, for instance, that exists in a few parliaments around the world. For instance, the Parliament of Finland. This is a committee that is made up of, just people sitting down and imagining the future of our country and, thinking about all kinds of scenarios. So for instance, we never knew that one day we'll wake up and we'll have a divided parliament and we'll struggle to define who is majority, who is minority. And so many other things, especially in a world that is very fast evolving. So, that I didn't see, but I hope maybe in the next round of revision, perhaps, this has taken more than 20 years, so I don't know whether we'll still be active then and we can see some of these things. And then, Winston, the other thing is, I was also hoping that, we had a struggle. And then the Right Honorable Speaker had to get involved to define who is minority and who is majority. Because the current standing orders were not made for a parliament like the one that we currently have. And I've seen that in many countries. So for instance, I would have loved to see some of these things defined clearly, and also even imagine a scenario where we wake up one day and we'll have maybe more than two strong parties in the parliament. How do you define these parties? I've seen that, for instance, in the last parliament in Sierra Leone, they were struggling because they only had majority minority. And how about the other parties? And they had other parties that were strong in the parliament. So, these are some of the things that I would have loved to see. But, again, let me say, they say half loaf is always better than nothing. So we are making some progress. So those are the disappointments. Do you want me to go into the great things that I've seen?
Exactly, go into the great things that you've seen.
Okay, so I think Honorable Bejra has talked about the reduction in the size of committees. I think, our committees are too big, too unwieldy. Where committees work and they are efficient, especially when we want them to work on the basis of consensus. I think the size of the committee is usually, not too big and not too small. So the reduction that is suggested in the current standing orders, I think is a good thing. Let me give you an example, Winston.
Sure.
If you go to the UK Parliament, it's a parliament that is 3 times almost the size of our parliament. But their Public Accounts Committee, for instance, is less than 20 members. Most of our committees are almost 30 and so on. So I think this is, is very good. Secondly, I think I have also seen, we've talked about that already, the committees that are chaired by the opposition, that would be great. I think I've also seen the budget committee, which is one great thing, because, over the years, we've been struggling to establish a parliamentary budget office. And studies upon studies have shown that our parliament is way behind the parliaments of East Africa, like Kenya, Uganda, which have what we call parliamentary budget offices and a budget committee. That takes away some of the powers of the finance committee and plays a very significant role in the budget process. So this has been established under these standing orders, which I think is a good thing. I've also seen some kind of what do you call it? The clarity given to how a sanctions regime, if you like, when there's a breach in or contempt of parliament. It was very vague in the previous standing orders. I have some notes here, Winston. Let me just look at my notes. I've also seen, the role of the speaker, giving some clarity, in terms of particularly prominence in the area of he playing a role in building consensus. The issue of secret balloting, which has been a big issue in this parliament, where we've seen situations where it has generated fights in the House. I think some clarity has been given to that. Private members' bill, I think we commended the Right Honorable Speaker Acquah for making sure that this was introduced. And now I think these standing orders have taken it up the next step in terms of providing some clarity. Backbencher time. A lot of backbenchers, people accuse a number of MPs that we don't hear you speak, we don't, you sit in Parliament, we don't hear you. The Right Honorable Speaker, most of the time, a lot of time in debates and so on are given to those in the front bench, the leaders they have. So today we are going to have backbenchers time, which will give the opportunity to those who are not in the front bench and ministers and so on. We also have seen, some, development in the area of attendance to Parliament. But here I have a little concern.
What are those concerns?
In addition to the electronic kind of sign-in, the new standing orders are saying that we want to have members physically sign in, so that at least this will be recorded in the votes proceedings. And then in another breath, Winston, we are saying that we want electronic voting. We want an e-parliament. So, I think we should be moving, in the direction of, using technology more, rather than taking one step there and then going back to this archaic paper, because I think members of Parliament have abused the system in a way. Then finally, Winston, another big thing that I've seen is the issue of quorum. I think Abdullahi versus the Attorney General has found its way into our new standing orders, where Parliament let its guard down, and then the Supreme Court came in and directed them in terms of what to do. So today, I think the standing orders make it clear if somebody is presiding, he or she can also have a vote that will be counted. So I think, Winston, overall, and then of course, like Honorable Bejra said, the big thing is the fact that most committees are now going to sit in public, apart from the Public Accounts Committee and the Appointments Committee, which is a great thing. And then finally, the governance institutions have to come before Parliament to answer, at least even if it is in the domain of trying to answer questions about how they have used resources that have been allocated to them by Parliament. I was on your program earlier with Evans, and the issue was raised about whether this will not be, trying to interfere in the work of independent governance institutions like the Electoral Commission and so on. I don't agree. I think that, as Dr. Ine indicated, if they are giving resources, they have to come and account on how those resources are used. Nobody is going to interfere in how they conduct elections and so on, but I think they have to come and account, just like every other institution, in terms of how, even the security agencies, the security sector, which has been very secretive in many countries. Today, a number of countries are finding ways to make sure that, issues that are not really national kind of security issues have to be in the public domain, so that citizens can get to know and can get answers.
Okay. I'll get back to you, but let me bring Honorable Bejra in at this point. You've made a few points about what you're not happy about. You would have preferred a committee of the future. You also would have loved to see more committees being chaired by parties, other than parties in government. Honorable Bejra, what's your take on these issues? You think that... yes, come in.
Listen, two of his issues have been taken care of by the current standing orders. Maybe he has not looked at the report. And so let me quickly refer you to the report, which, if you have the report, page 23 of the report, says that is the item 5.29.1a(c). It says the committee recommends that the chairperson of all other committees be appointed based on numerical strength of the parties in parliament. And so apart from the 6 committees that will be chaired by the ruling party in government, that is the Finance Committee, the Committee on Defense and Interior, the Committee on Foreign Affairs, Committee on Security and Intelligence, Committee on Constitutional Legal Affairs, and Committee on Employment, Labor Relations, and Pension, which are supposed to be chaired by party in power. The other committees that will be chaired by party that is not in power will be Public Accounts Committee, Committee on Subsidiary Legislation, Committee on Government Assurance, Budget Committee, and Appointment Committee. Then after that, the rest of the committees, leadership of the committees will now be, chair as based on the numerical strength of each party. So, Doc, your point here has been taken care of. It is not party that is in power as we currently have who will chair all the committees. Apart from those one that has been designated for party in power and party in opposition or in minority, the rest of the committees will now be shared according to, leadership of the committee will now be shared according to, so it's there. Then the issue of
yes, can you hold on, Honorable Beja? I'll get back to you because there are 1 or 2 questions that I need to ask on that also. Let's just go for a short break. This is Upfront on the Joy News channel. And this evening we're having a discussion on Parliament's new standing orders and how those orders would enhance Ghana's democracy. When we return, we'll continue the conversation with Honorable Emmanuel Bedra, Member of Parliament for Ho West, and Dr. Rashid Rahman, who's Executive Director of the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. We'll be right back. Welcome back, and thank you very much for staying with us here on Upfront on the Joy News channel. And tonight we're having a conversation about Parliament's new standing orders. We're joined via Zoom by Honorable Emmanuel Kwesi Bedra, who's Member of Parliament for Ho West, and Dr. Rashid Rahman, who's the Executive Director for the Africa Center for Parliamentary Affairs. Now, Honorable Bedra, you're making a point, but let's look at this, critically. The point you are making, when I look at, the chairperson of the following committees being appointed by a membership of the party or parties in parliament other than the party or parties which form the government, that's B, as Public Accounts Committee, Committee on Subsidiary Legislation, Committee on Government and Parliamentary Assurances, Budget Committee and Appointments Committee. C, the committee recommends that chairpersons of all other committees be appointed based on the numerical strength of the parties in parliament. Now, this is based on numerical strength. The other one, B, is categorical. Irrespective of the numerical strength, the Appointments Committee should be chaired by parties other than those in government. Doesn't this defeat, isn't this different from what, Dr. Rashid Rahman was suggesting, Honorable Bedra?
So those who drafted the initial standing orders, and exactly what the two of us have been saying, has to do with the fact that you need members or parties that are not in power to also have some leadership role in some of the committees. And he mentioned some of the select committees like education and so on and so forth. And so what will happen now after the passage of this standing orders will be that after the 11 committees that have been set aside for parties ruling and the parties that are not in power, we'll look at our numerical strength. Okay, currently we have 50-50, as you all know, hung parliament. And so 50 of the rest of the committees will be balloted by the minority and majority. And so whatever is left, if it's about 12 committees that is left, 6 will be given to minority to chair, 6 will be given to majority also to chair, in addition to the 6 of the majority or party in power, and the 5 of the party of committees that parties are not in power. And so it's the same thing that myself and Dr. Rashid have been saying. Initially, he didn't know that the rest, he thought that it was only limited to only those 5 committees for parties that are not in power.
But if you look at it, okay, let me get Dr. Rashid Rahman. Are you both on the same page, Dr. Rahman?
Well, not too sure. Winston, as you have indicated, we've been very categorical about some of the committees. In other jurisdictions, they are categorical in all committees that that the opposition must chair. So that, I mean, you look at, the kind of weight of the work the committee does, I mean, the importance of that committee in terms of oversight and so on, and then you say, look, because a lot of money goes to education, let's make sure that this is chaired by the opposition so that at least, the checks and balances can be there at all times. When we leave it to ballot, or when we leave it to the discretion of, the leadership of parliament, yes, we can get it, but if we are not careful, they might give youth and sports, they might give, committees, committees that, have poverty reduction, and, committees that don't receive or don't have, a lot of work in terms of oversight. And then maybe the party that's in power would chair the rest of the other committees. So, yes, I think it's progress if you compare it to the current standing orders. But we should have been categorical and be blunt and clear about this, just as we were with the appointments committee, just as we were with the other committees that are going, the PAC and so on and so forth. And we always cite the PAC as one of the most effective, just because it's chaired by the opposition. And so we are not really on the same page. I think I'm half on his page and not on the full page in terms of this matter.
Okay, but Honorable Bedra, you've been a chairman of the Government Assurances Committee before. You've been ranking member also. Now we have a situation where an opposition member is supposed to be the chairperson of the Government Assurances Committee. What would really change? You've been working. What would change if an opposition member is the chairperson of the Government Assurances Committee?
Well, just as Doctor has mentioned, when you have a chairperson of subsidiary legislation coming from the minority side, or the chairperson of Public Accounts Committee, as he mentioned, that has been very effective coming from the minority side. I'll give you a typical example. If there are laws that are supposed to come under subsidiary legislation, be instrument, and the chairman of the committee coming from the other side of the aisle do not approve of it, it will be very difficult, for the instrument to be laid, because they need to have a buy-in and a pre-laying, and so this has to do with an oversight, and so we need members from the other side to take over, as it were, to become the chairman or leaders of committees that will have a strong oversight. For instance, just as you mentioned, the Government Assurance Committee, you remember in 2013, thereabout to 2016, I was the chair. Even though my party was in power, I tried as much as possible to bring the Government Assurance Committee into the limelight, where we had a lot of work done under the Government Assurance Committee with the help of Star Ghana, Dr. Rashid Daman, and the rest. Now, when we lost power and I took over as the ranking member, I did not have the same power as the chairman, or just a ranking member. And so the initiative needs to be taken by the chairperson. And so things were not going as it were, as we wanted it. So I was even moved to Western Housing Committee to become the ranking member on Western Housing Committee. And so it shows clearly that being a chair of a committee wields enormous power, just as we have in the Public Accounts Committee. Now, recently, the chairman of the Public Accounts Committee ordered that one of the attendees should be hauled before the police, and then we asked the police to arrest him. So he has a lot of power. And so if you are not a chair of a committee or a leader of that committee, you will not exercise a lot of power as the standing orders made us to be. And so yes, becoming a chair of Government Assurance Committee will give you a lot of power as a minority person or opposition party member, and also will make sure that you do your work very well. I'll give a typical example. As a chairman of the Government Assurance Committee, if I'm giving a nod again, promises made by ministers from time to time will be hauled. And this time around, it's not limited to only promises, but implementation of those promises as well. And so as a chair, you have that power to make sure that the promises made by those ministers are either done or not done, and you have the power to hold the minister before the committee. Currently, as it stands now, everybody's looking to the president, whether the president will call him and give him a ministerial position or not. And so they may not be willing to take the bull by the horn by calling their own peers to halt. And but I mean, I did it in the previous two parliaments. I don't see why people should be afraid not to do it now. But it's an individual issue. It depends on where you stand when it comes to oversight in terms of leadership. And so, yes, it is very important. Not only Government Assurance Committee, but the Budget Committee. Mm-hmm. The only place I debated today that I was not too happy has to do with the Appointment Committee. Even though the Appointment Committee, the chairmanship of the Appointment Committee, will go to a party that is not in power. And then now, currently, you have leadership of the House and leadership of the select committees where the minister will be coming from, so that you can bring your expertise to bear and ask the minister questions from your field. It is okay, but I am, and some of us, not me alone, majority of us thinks that the leadership or the chairman of that committee should rather be, for a party that is in power.
Why?
Instead of giving it to, listen. Why? Because you see, we live in a society where if you are given the opportunity to prevent your own colleagues from becoming a minister, not with any justifiable reason, you will do it because you want to show where power belongs or where power lies. Take for instance, a lot of things that happened during Joe Wise, Honorable MP for Bekwai, when issues were brought before him as the chairman of the committee. Sometimes he uses his power as the chairman of the committee and allows the nominees to go through. If Joe Wise was to be a minority person and issues of this nature comes, he will make sure that it doesn't go through at all. You understand? And so a party in power should be given the authority. But unfortunately...
Hold on a second. Now, the Public Accounts Committee is chaired by a party in opposition.
Exactly.
The Public Accounts Committee, like you've all agreed, one of the best performing committees in Parliament.
Yeah.
What's wrong if you come and you're being asked questions? You are calling for protectionism, Honorable Beja. I mean, if I get you clearly, you're calling... Yes, come in.
Listen, I'm not calling for protection at all. I'm calling for fairness.
Yeah, fairness. You don't trust. Are you saying, for instance, that Honorable Aveji today is not fair as chairperson of the Public Accounts Committee?
No, he's being fair. He's doing his work. I mean, he's doing perfectly
well. Is he being fair? Is he being fair?
He's being fair. For me, he's being fair.
Is Joe Asewusu being fair?
Well, that is subjective.
Okay.
Because there are issues that came up that you remember even the minority voted against some nominee. Mm-hmm. Why did they vote against some nominee? They voted against some nominee because they think that the issues have not been dealt with properly.
In your view, is he being fair?
Not in my view. In the view of the entire minority.
He's not being fair.
By the entire minority, that will not have voted. The committee report will not be a majority report.
So if he's not being fair as an MPP member or party in government, why wouldn't you support an opposition member to do that? And in that case, you would be happy that that person will be fair, isn't it?
You see, listen, all we are saying is that, look, you have government in power nominating its person to become a minister of state. And then an opposition, now we don't use opposition again in our parliament, a minority party will come and said, we think that this person, even though he qualifies, justified by the constitution, because whatever you do in that committee the qualification should be from the constitution. Even if the person qualified, we think that we'll not give it to him because we don't like him.
So your fear, before I get to Dr. Draman, your fear is that the minority or the opposition party could use that to actually vote against government appointees?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But well, it's been passed, so let's ignore it. That is my view. But majority of our colleagues as well, they will go by what the new standing order. So we pass it.
Is that what you would have done, given the opportunity?
Of course, if we were to ask for a vote, I would have voted against it actually. But well, this is a voice vote. Even though we voted against it, it's passed. My voice was drowned.
Let me bring Dr. Rashid Rahman in here. Dr. Rashid Rahman, what's your view on this?
Well, I think I honestly don't agree with my brother there. I think just like you said, I mean, we want more of these committees and powerful committees as such to be chaired by the opposition. I mean, on the lighter note, I mean, I'm running this in my head and thinking that, well, maybe the likes of Honorable Bajra are thinking that maybe come 2025 they'll be in government, and then they don't want the opposition to be chairing this committee and
I mentioned it today that I'll be in government next parliament, and I'll be home
I'll be home before the committee, and you are trying to self-protect. So I mean that's. But Winston, on another note, I think the other important thing that I forgot to mention is the fact that we now have a post-legislative scrutiny committee, which will be a committee that will be, every now and then looking at the bills that have been passed by Parliament to see whether they are, really, addressing the gaps that they were intended to in the first place. And that's a good thing. But Winston, I have to go now, honestly. I have to go. So thank you very much for having me.
But just before you go, one point from you, last point from you. Do you think the new standing orders will enhance our democracy? And in what way will it enhance our democracy?
Well, I think indeed it will, particularly because if we have, the business of oversight in any parliament is the business of the entire parliament. But over the years, across many countries, we've seen that the business of oversight usually is left in the hands of the opposition or the minority for obvious reasons. Now, if the minority parties or party has the opportunity to chair a number of oversight committees, I think our democracy will be enhanced. And I think also if we have sizable committees, the cost of running these committees, the unwieldiness of these committees, and making sure that decisions are made on the basis of consensus so that there wouldn't be a lot of gridlock and so on. All this, I think, would enhance our democracy, Winston, and many more.
Thank you very much, Honorable Dr. Rashid Rahman. You would have to leave us. Let me get back to you, Honorable Bajra. So I'm just looking at, the new committees, and let me get your view on some of these committees. You're looking at, a committee on economy and development planning. And we know that the Finance Committee does this. Why would you want another committee to be doing this?
Yeah, listen, so today, somebody mentioned on the floor of the House that now we have divided or shared the Committee of Finance into three. One is the Budget Committee, one is the Finance Committee itself, and one is the Economy and the
Development Planning.
Development Committee, Development Committee. Quite frankly, we say if you look at the work of the Committee on Development and Economy and Development Planning, it is quite extensive than that which is limited to only the Finance Committee. Let me read what the report says. The committee noted that currently the Finance Committee exercises oversight responsibility of all matters related to finance, economy, and development planning. Increasingly, however, the Finance Committee has been inundated with referrals, and matters to finance have been prioritized over all other matters within the committee's mandate. This has often left matters of the economy and development unattended to. The committee accordingly recommends for the establishment of a new committee and gives it the mandate to consider all matters relating to the economy and development planning and ensure that such matters are given the needed attention within the governance framework of the Republic. Listen, you know very well that every 2 years, the president is supposed to bring to the House his plans that he has for the development of the state. And that plan should be in his medium-term coordinated according to our constitution. And so every now and then, the president is supposed to tell us the gaps that are in the development plans, whether those development plans have been taken care of or not. Unfortunately, we have not seen that much when it comes to the Finance Committee. Finance Committee's work largely has been over the years since I came, has to be approval of loans and giving concession to taxes and so on and so forth. And now we have a committee that will take care of our development, our economy, and then development planning. When it comes to what are the issues concerning development planning, this committee will take it up with the development planning authority or development planning commission. And then when it comes to the economy itself, this committee will work with Bank of Ghana as well as that of Minister of Finance to see where priority areas monies have been allocated according to government's development planning agenda for the 2 years that the president comes to lay his development planning in Parliament. And so this committee will make sure will now report back to Parliament whether those plans, coordinated plans, have been achieved or not achieved at all. And so it is good for us as a new committee. Listen, that is not the only committee. There's a committee on security and intelligence. If you permit me, Security and Intelligence Committee has to do, largely there's a new trend in the world of security where you have the Committee on Defense and Interior working with the intelligence and security apparatus or institutions. Now we have Ministry of Security, and we have the National Investigation Bureau. We have all other security institutions that we need a committee that will work with them instead of limiting it to defense and interior. Defense and interior, we have defense, we have the police, and we have the other fire service, and they have too many institutions that they will need to work with. And so, if having defense and having committee on security and intelligence is also in the right direction. And then another committee, a new committee that has been introduced, has to do with Committee on Public Administration and State Interest.
Yes. What are you going to do that the current committees cannot do? I mean, state interest. You have a lot of these, committees. Can they do that?
Listen, in the past we do not have a committee that deals with public administration, where you have the public administration has to do with head of civil service. We do not have any institution coming to Parliament to defend them when their budgets are being brought. We don't have any committee that defends them. They do their own thing, and then we do not know what happens there. And so now we have a committee that will deal with public administration. Public administration has to do largely with the head of civil service, and then as well as ministry, department, and agencies. Another one has state interest. We have state interest like State Enterprise Commission or state enterprises that we have in the country.
State Interest and Governance Authority now. Yes, you changed that. Yes.
Okay, Governance Authority now.
Yes.
Now you need a committee that will handle that, because mind you, we invest heavily in some of those institutions, and we need a committee that will make sure that those institutions are either making profit or they are.
So I mean, with all these committees that you've talked about, and we've been talking about them, these are the new ones that have been introduced. How are they going to enhance our country's democracy? For many people, they say they had too many expectations of the hung parliament. They've not seen that. Will this change anything?
It will change a lot of things. Take, for instance, the new leadership of parliament. If this thing comes into being, or this new standing orders comes into force, it means that some of the leadership of the committees will not change. For instance,
would it take effect? Yes, let me get your view on this. Will it take effect immediately, or will it take effect in the next parliament?
Immediately. In fact, from what I'm hearing from the grapevine, we've not done the resolution yet. So what I'm hearing is that we even wanted to take it before the media review. I don't know how true that is. Leadership have not told us, but that would be to for our advantage, because you see the numbers will be limited. You have people who work. You will not be in so many committees that you don't have time to even do proper scrutiny. You will now be limited to 1, 2, or 3 committees that you can work effectively. Okay. And also you have oversight over those ministry, department, and agencies. For instance, I was just saying, how will you enhance the work of democracy and parliament? If you have the leadership of Government Assurance Committee being from the party not in government, you know how it is, just like Public Accounts Committee and subsidiary legislation. Okay. You will be able to do your work effectively. So as my committee that I was mentioning, the appointment committee, when the president nominates somebody now, and then the minority will have to be, you see how to scrutinize and really grill the person who become the nominee of the president.
Okay. Well, Honorable Emmanuel Beja, thank you very much for making time to join us this evening. We're very grateful to you. We wish you all the best. He's Member of Parliament for Ho West in the Volta region, representing the NDC, who joined us this morning here on Upfront on the Joy News channel. My name is Winston Amoah. On behalf of the team, thank you very much for joining us. Up next is Joy News Prime.